Hello and welcome to sim.bc, where right now is 6:15 in the evening. And why is it so late? Why am I getting closer to that 7-8 o'clock that I've said that I want to talk about? Like where I actually want to record if I could manage it on my own schedule, yeah? Probably gonna move up that time because I'm never gonna reach that. I always want to be ahead, and if I put it earlier, I'm only going to record even more early. Perhaps then I'm gonna go up in a reasonable time. Yeah, I've found a way to, reschedule my entire life. Anyway, not that small break of inspiration there, but the idea, or rather the reason for why I am recording this late is because I'm looking at cameras with one of my mates, yeah? One of my mates helped me because he had some expertise regarding, oh my days, we just went off the rails, but now we're back. We were watching, oh my. Some of these days, it's just hard speaking English, but you just gonna go for it, yeah? What I was trying to say is that one of me mates have some expertise when it comes to cameras. And so he helped me go to the store and look for cameras, asking the right kinds of questions. Now, unfortunately, as you probably can see, based on the quality of the video, I didn't buy one today, but I got lots of good information about, well, how to go about it in the future. And basically the conclusion that I arrived to when I was there, and that he helped me arrive to as well, I might add, is that basically all of the cameras fits my needs. Because the guy in the store, he was saying, well, what kind of camera are you looking for? Are you looking for a stabilizer? Are you looking for a video camera? Are you looking for a system camera? Are you looking for an operative camera or a compact camera or something in between? Or are you looking for something where you have a lot of input or not have a lot of input? And I was just like, I want a camera that gives me kind of a clear view when I'm recording videos. And he was like, wow, that's basically all of them. All of them kind of do that nowadays. And I was like, yeah, I can go for the cheapest one. No, just kidding. But yet again, it feels like, why should I invest in something right now that doesn't yield any profit, right? Because these videos aren't yielding any profit, so it feels kind of weird in a way to actually invest, resources and capital into something that isn't yielding any, return on investment yet. However, one can also argue that if I don't, then that's not showing commitment to the channel, then how am I going to actually earn any profit from it if I'm not, actually sticking to it? But that's a topic for another time and an entirely different problem, because today, mates, we're continuing on that founder's problem. And we're going to take about a case today. Not a case, but an example, the Swedish example. And many of you might sit out there and be like, wait, hold on. Have we already been done with all the things? No, we're not. We still have the pitch to go. We still have the review. We still have the boring stuff, such as financial planning and forecasts and all these, formalities that you need to have and that you need to compose. And the cultural cage, as we're kind of going to discuss now today as well, but not in as great of detail. Because today I thought, I read on the BBC News, yeah, and I'm not going to take it up on the Saturday News recap because this was kind of some weeks ago, about the lagomkulturen and the jantelagen that we have in Sweden, and how hard it must be to start a business in Sweden. And these two concepts, the lagomkultur, is basically, I don't think there is an English word for it, but it is the lagom culture, which basically means that you shouldn't do things too great, you shouldn't do them too bad, you should do them just in between, yeah? So that is the lagom culture. And then jantelagen is basically a social norm, a social law in a way, but it's not enforced, which basically says that everybody's on a line, and this is not the exact definition, yeah? And I know I've said before that don't state anything online that you can't stand for, because it may and can and probably will be used against you in some times at the future. And this video will probably be one of those, because yet again, I'm going to talk about things in Sweden, so people can actually come up to me and say like, you're wrong, and I'm like, technically no. So just bear in mind that this might not be the exact definition. Jantelagen is that everybody's on a line, yeah, and you shouldn't stick up and you shouldn't be below. You should be just in between with everybody else. Kind of the same idea as the lagom culture. However, in the article, they were talking about that it must be very hard for Swedish people to actually start businesses and come up with innovation if you're not allowed to state your opinion, because that looks like boasting, or that looks like, well, bragging in a way, in comparison to everybody else who didn't come up with the idea. Still, they took up, and this is not the exact fact, I might be paraphrasing here, that Sweden has one of the highest innovation and startups per capita, or to percentage of our population in the world, one of the highest countries up there. And that is in a way connected to these two examples, or to these two social phenomenon in society. And they were kind of boggled by this idea. The article's title was "Is boasting good or bad for business?" If you want to look it up, it's on the BBC News, not sponsored or anything like that. And they were constantly saying that, well, how can you keep this social structure of not being able to, you shouldn't be above people? Then how can you start a startup? Because the entire idea when starting a startup, or encountering a startup, or encountering the idea, is that you should be able to believe in your idea so much that, as we've been talking about, you need to be able to live and breathe your organization, live and breathe your startup, live and breathe your idea. And how do you do that without having the confidence in the idea and sharing that confidence with other people? And I've heard some of my mates in Sweden talking about the same thing, as some international students in universities saying that it must be really hard to actually make it in Sweden, because you don't talk about what you earn in the same way as we do abroad. You don't talk about those things because they're seen as kind of a sin to actually just mention. Yeah, pardon my, religious combination there with sin and something bad. At least it's seen as something really bad to talk about your income if it's a high income, because you shouldn't, in a way, in the social context of Sweden. And I know that some people agree with that. I know that some people disagree with that. Just bear with me. I would argue, though, that since we have these two concepts in society, we're actually a bit more humble by nature, because we don't want to be above people. So we don't just want to be bragging about, I have this amazing idea that you don't have. Instead, we want to do something more along the lines of saying that, hey mate, come here. I have an idea that I think is really good, but, or rather, if I just present this what do you think about this phenomenon? What do you think about this idea? And your mate is saying, well, that's pretty good. How did you come up with this? Where did you read about this? And you're like, yeah, I came up with it. It's my own idea. I've been seeing this problem now for a while. And maybe your mate is saying, well, yeah, it's good. It's almost correct, but you missed something here. And you're just like, oh yeah, thank you. And that idea, if that was a bit abstract, that's about two people exchanging words, yeah, is that instead of coming along and saying, well, I had the best idea ever, and your friend is just like, sure, I don't care. I mean, if you do, then it's all good for you. Instead of coming along and saying and stating that I had the best idea ever, the perfect idea, you're instead coming along and saying that I have introduced a kind of a new concept here. What do you think about it? Can I get your feedback, really? Because I know it's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect right now. But what I want to do is I want to develop this format. I want to develop this kind of idea. Kind of the same thing that I did when I was starting this YouTube channel and, my business for a long time ago, right? Trying to start it, and actually consulted people in talking about that. I know that this isn't perfect, but I want to pursue this. And this is kind of a thing that comes natural to many Swedish people, I would argue. And so with the article. As far as my interpretations of the article were, I might add that, right? As far as my interpretation goes of the article, they were saying that, well, in Sweden, people are more humble by nature, because we're yet again not saying that I am the best in the world, which scares people away, yes? Scare them off and say that, well, sure, if it's the best idea ever, then it's probably perfect and I can't add anything to it. So just stick with your idea and go with it. But in Sweden, we tend to do it the other way around. We might say that I believe in this concept going in this direction. It's like I've been shooting with a shotgun, yeah? A really broad range, but now I want to have you. I want to use you. I want to have you as help, yeah, to actually narrow it down, pick up the sniper rifle, actually aim. Where are we going? I know it's in this direction, But where specifically? I can't come up with that. At least not now. Maybe I'm stuck, in my reasoning. Maybe it's something that I can't really get out of this. And that's where this culture comes along. Instead of stating yourself above everybody else, instead of stating yourself here, when everybody else is here, you're saying that you're bringing them up with you. In saying that, well, I'm sharing my idea with you. I'm still keeping the integrity of my startup, of my own plan, of the key points, It's still my idea, but I'm bringing you along for it so that I can raise the bar, so that you can tell me, your feedback. And if you tell me your feedback, maybe you're playing off of this same solution that I have and implement that somewhere else in another industry in a new way. Maybe that thought process that I had was the missing link to something new in another industry that you can take up, that my friend can take up, that his friend can take up, something along those lines. And that is probably why we're increasing the amount of innovation that is in the country in relation to capita, of course, because we're still a small country, because many people are sharing many different ideas. They're not afraid that people are going to take them, because we have a kind of, at least as I understood it, we have a good governmental security when it comes to your ideas and patenting laws and stuff like that. We can actually trust our government in a way, which you unfortunately can't in many countries, which is a clear limitation. But we can share our own ideas without being afraid of people stealing them outright, because stealing them, which is kind of funny, would actually put you below the average, because you're worse than the average. You're worse than the average. You're a bad person. So you don't want to do that. You want to be equal with all the other people, jantelagen, You don't want to stick out. So instead, you're bringing people up with you when you're introducing a new idea that will then introduce the thought process of maybe solving other problems in other sectors, creating new startups, and then they're coming and ask you about what you think about it, and then you raise the bar again. And of course, you can apply this thought process of what is the average. Is it the entire society? Because that's impossible to raise the entire of society in one go with one innovation. Or is it your social circle? Or is it your team? Or is it your company? Is it your family? Is it you and your friends? That, of course, depends. But still, this idea that you're trying to raise the average so that you don't stick out as much, instead of bragging and just putting yourself above everybody else. This if we relate it to Hofstadter's dimensions, this feministic approach of saying that, well, I want everybody to get along, and I want to raise everybody up with me, instead of saying that I'm sticking to the top and that's just what I do. Yet again, introducing this idea that you're sharing your startup opinion and idea, giving you more feedback than if you would just say, I'm perfect, my idea is perfect, I'm gonna go all the way. Still, confidence, not a bad thing, which was what the article was talking about. They were talking about that if you aren't boasting, are you really showing confidence? But in Sweden, I would argue then that, well, yes, we do, but we don't have to be jerks about it. We can just say that this is my idea, and people are understanding that, well, with well-constructed arguments, we can see that, yes, you are believing in it, and yes, it makes sense, because it's kind of logical. Anyway, mates, that was everything for me today. This was, of course, relating to the natural caging or the cultural caging, in the idea that I'm from Sweden. I have these ideas. I have this social context around me that makes me think in a specific way. So social caging here in a positive way, but we're going to take up positives and negatives in a later video. So just bear with me and keep that in mind. But I thought this was kind of an interesting idea, that a startup doesn't necessarily have to be about expressing your confidence. It could be more about getting the help that you need from others while still being confident in your idea. Being confident in your idea and being a jerk about your idea is two very different things. Something that I think that we in Sweden, at least generally, and I know you shouldn't talk generally because that's when you start tipping and stepping on people's toes, but I would argue, based on my understanding of society, based on my own experience, based on the article, that the Swedish people in general, in comparison to other countries, are kind of good, trying to hedge as much as possible here, are very good when it comes to this kind of idea, actually taking other people's ideas into consideration and not just being jerks about, I'm the best, I'm gonna go for it, but instead trying to get everybody along with you, raising the bar together. That was everything for me today, mates. See you tomorrow. Have a nice one.